So, good morning, first of all. Hope you're having a great beginning to your day. So, yesterday, actually, in Shul, we've had our biggest crowd since we started davening inside and outside together. We used to only pray outside, but once it got very cold, we did sort of a hybrid where people could sit inside or outside. But yesterday, we were over 30 people in Shul. A lot of them were outside in the cold and the snow. Many of them had a double vaccine already, which is promising and looking bright. And when it came to the end of Torah reading, I kibitzed the guys. I said, usually if the Patriots are in the Super Bowl, we make a mishaberach, that they should win. And people should rap tefillin in their honor. I said, should we make a mishaberach for Brady or not? And I asked a lot of our friends, are you rooting for Tom Brady now that he's playing for the Buccaneers? Or are you rooting for Mahomes? And it's interesting because a lot of people feel that Brady traded on them, and therefore they don't want to root for him. While I disagree with that, and I think we should root for Brady, and if he wins, it only signals even greater greatness for what New England is and was. But I wanted to talk about the real winners. Everyone's going to be watching the game, and although I think God sent us a signal there's going to be tremendous snow coming between 3 and 6, that we shouldn't be having big parties this year and we should be safe, this is going to be a game. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent. There's going to be a winner, but who's going to be the real winners? And I think that the real winners today are going to be the 7,500 healthcare workers that are being flown to the game. Healthcare workers that have been vaccinated and have been on the front line for 10 months protecting us all. And the real winners, the Patriots aren't in the Super Bowl this year. It's been a year with no playoffs to the Patriots. It doesn't happen often. There's no Patriots going with players. But the Krafts are real winners. Because Bob Kraft, our dear friend, and his family are flying 75 healthcare workers in their own Patriots plane from Boston to go to the Super Bowl, recognizing that they were on the front lines and that they are there for all of us, and we have to celebrate and recognize these people that have sacrificed for us the last 10 years, 10 months. And to me, maybe 10 years actually, to me, those are the real winners. If the Buccaneers win, if Brady wins, or if Mahomes wins, I hope Brady wins. But whoever wins, the real winners are going to be those healthcare workers. Which brings me to something in the portion. The juxtaposition between the portions of Jethro and Mishpatim is really surprising. You don't take someone from a hot bath and plunge them into ice cold shower. While Yisro takes us on such a high, Mishpatim, this week's Torah portion, is a real downer. From a mountain ablaze with thundering and lightning and 10 commandments, which created civilization, we jump right into the minutia of Jewish civil law, dealing with an ox goring another ox, or a thief stealing a sheep and slaughtering it. From the greatest moment in history, when God revealed his presence to Israel on Mount Sinai, when an entire nation saw God face to face for the only time in history, we go straight into the most technical, earthy, and tedious laws in Jewish civil law, revolving around thieves and criminals and damagers. When your ox gores the ox of your neighbor, when you expose a pit in the public domain, when you murder someone intentionally, when you strike your parents, when you curse a judge, when you seduce a young unmarried girl, when you strike your servant and he loses his tooth. If your slave says, I love my master and I don't want to go free. If the donkey of your enemy is laboring under its burden, etc., etc. It is not that these laws are unimportant. They are vital for a civil society and law and order. What is strange is that the Torah chooses to list these laws right after the revelation of Sinai, right after God comes down on the mountain, amidst lightning and thunder, the sounding of the shofar and the mountain ablaze, communicating the 10 commandments and allowing a people to experience God. Right after that, God presents to Moses an abundant amount of laws which deal with the nitty-gritty of human mischief. We would expect that after the revelation at Sinai, in which humans experience ultimate transcendence, the Torah would discuss some lofty and spiritual concepts. Maybe some more idealistic ideas, prayer, study, love of God, God's unity, family, the Holy of Holies, the holidays. Yeah, the Torah delves right into the most mundane set of laws, dealing with the most minutia and mundane issues and problems. You know, I saw one of, I don't know, you guys know Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, who passed away, the great scholar in Israel, passed away this past year. He's a really remarkable, sharp man, greatly knowledgeable, a master of Torah. One of his students was to ask him, tell me, what's the most important question in Judaism? And without hesitation, and with his typical twinkle in his eye, Rabbi Steinsaltz looked at him and said 2 words, V'azma. He spoke in Hebrew, V'azma, which translates to, and then what? And Rabbi Steinsaltz looked at him and said, you know, we all have moments of transcendence. We all have moments of great passion and excitement. Big deal. But what happens afterwards? And then what? The trick is not to have a revelation of Sinai. The trick is what you do with that revelation. How you translate that into your day-to-day life. How you behave and act afterwards. V'azma, the greatest question in Jewish history, Rabbi Steinsaltz says, is V'azma, what do you do with your moment of transcendence, with your moment of spiritual ecstasy? Every human being has a moment, an epiphany, where they feel that they've come so close to heaven, their own revelation of Mount Sinai, where they feel that spiritual rush, where they feel so close to God, so connected, so engaged, so involved. But what happens afterwards? How does that translate into the day-to-day life, behavior and actions, the routines of how they act? And that's why when God gave the greatest revelation ever occurred in history, when God revealed himself to an entire nation and gave them his essence, Anochi, I am God, the God, as we read this Shabbos in Shul, the moment afterwards, the next portion, he didn't speak about Shabbos, he didn't speak about tefillin, he didn't speak about love, he didn't speak about all these spiritual, exciting transcendence things. He spoke about the little detailed minutiae of day-to-day life, how you treat your neighbor, how you respond to an orphan and a widow, how you take care of those that are poor and destitute, how you look after the damages that you do to someone else, how you are responsible for the way you act, the way you treat people, your honesty, your integrity in the mundane material life. Because God wanted us to know the v'azma, that who you are is not about that transcendent moments. It's about how you are afterwards. That's what I was thinking today when I watched on the news the plane getting ready to board, all the healthcare workers, the Patriots logo on it, taking these first responders, these nurses, these medical people, and taking them to the Super Bowl. Yes, the Patriots are not at that moment of transcendence where they're playing, the rush, the excitement. Today when you're going to be watching the game, you're going to be stepping back and watching. You're not going to be as engaged as every year because your team's not playing. But your team won because the Patriots showed the v'azma, that after that transcendence, it's how you behave afterwards. We might not be there this year. We'll get back. You could trust the Crafts and Belichick. But how we behave in this year is a proof of who we are and tells us that we are the true winners. You know, the famous folk story, it's not a true story, but it's a kibbutz story about the famous Rebbe, Reb Mendel of Rimanov. He was one of the great Hasidic Rebbes in Poland. And I don't know if you know what a misnagid is. A misnagid is someone who didn't believe in the Hasidic allure of a Rebbe and how they follow their leaders. And they laughed at it. And one day this misnagid comes in to Rimanov, which is the city where Rimanov was the Rebbe, and was the time of Slichot, the time before Rosh Hashanah, when we pray every morning. We get up early to have supplication to God, to pray for forgiveness. And he sees that the Rebbe's not there. So he asked the Chassidim, where the Rebbe? He said, we don't know, the Rebbe doesn't come. Maybe he goes up to heaven. Maybe he has a spiritual transcendence. And the second one said this, and this Misnagid laughed. He said, this Rebbe, these guys, they're in La La Land, these Chassidim, what do they think? Where's the Rebbe? I'm going to find out. And that night he went and he hid under the Rebbe's window of his room, watching. And the moment the Rebbe got up in the morning, he saw the Rebbe washed his hands and got dressed in his beautiful fur coat. He said, the Rebbe's probably going to play a game. And then he saw the Rebbe take a big axe and put it under his coat. He says, wow, maybe the Rebbe's a thief or a murderer. Where's he going? And he watches and he follows the Rebbe and he sees the Rebbe go into the woods and he chops off a tree and he takes the pieces of wood, the bundle, and he goes to this widow's home and he knocks on the door and he says, it's Ivan. It's the guy Ivan who's here. She says, what do you want? He says, I want to sell you wood for cheap. She says, wood for cheap? I'm a widow. I don't have $1, a penny to spend a ruble for wood. What do you? He says, don't worry. I know where you are. I'll give it to you for free now. You'll pay me a different time when you have money. And he watches the Rebbe went in. This woman was shivering in the corner and she was covered in her blanket. And the Rebbe went in and he put the wood and he set the fire and he put it on and he warmed her up hot water and he gave her a tea and he left the house. From that day on, this Misnagid said, I want to be a chassid of Mendel or Rimanov. And when he heard the chassidim talking of where the Rebbe would go for slichot, and they would say up to heaven, he would smile and he would say maybe even higher than that. Because there's one place higher than heaven. It's how you are down here on earth, how you treat others. And that's the message of Elah Mishpatim coming after the transcendent moment of the giving of the Torah. You could climb so high in the mountain, but what you do here on earth and how you treat your human being and friend and the widow and the poor is who you really are. That's the message the Patriots taught us today, and all those 7,500 workers, healthcare workers going to the Patriots game. May the best team win. Go Tom Brady. That's my opinion. God bless you. Have a good day. And hopefully you can take your transcendent moments and permeate your day-to-day life and the way you treat every human being. God bless you.